Being a professor here, I have a group of research scholars who work with me on several research problems. Invariably, what happens is when they try a particular method or an experiment, they get so upset when the experiment doesn't go as they expected. Many times they would just run towards me and say, "Sir, it has not worked." So my answer used to be, "Good, it has not worked, because now you have a question to ask: why didn't it work?" Right? So this is something where you're now looking at failure of an experiment, but this failure of an experiment has to do with what is it that has caused this failure, and therefore I have abundance of questions to ask about failure so that it is possible for me to do research. In life also, it is very similar. There are many attempts that we make where we think it is failure, but on our examination, it is possible for us to look at the other side. People say half full and half empty. So it's how you look at whatever has happened, the event that has happened. You can look at it as half empty and say it's a failure. But the same thing, you can look at it as something that has given me an understanding. So when Edison was asked, "How come you persisted? You had failed over and over, and still you persisted?" Edison said, "When did I fail? I never failed. There were many attempts that I made, and I understood from each attempt that this is a stepping toward a stone towards something that probably will be an understanding and success in the next step." And therefore, he looked at every quote unquote failure as a stepping stone to a success. Right? And look at how he has reframed this entire thing. Every experiment that occurred replaced one material with the other, and so on and so forth. And each time there was the failure from the viewpoint of those who were working with him, the co-workers of Edison. Whereas Edison looked at this as, "Oh, okay, I know that this material will not work, and therefore I have now crossed one more, and there is only a few more things left." The way he was looking at helped him invent the light bulb. Even today, without light bulb, we are nowhere, and that's what is important. So it is important to look at it this way, reframe what you see as failure as something that is a stepping stone.
Knowing how something doesn't work is as essential as knowing how it does. For example, knowing what all can go wrong while making a crispy dosa, a crispy golden dosa, is as essential as knowing how to make a crispy golden dosa. I personally subscribe to cooking recipe blogs that clearly state what can go wrong and what may go wrong and what you need to do if that happens. And some of the recipes just give you the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that really doesn't help much because we tend to make mistakes while making dishes. A piece of code, software, product, any process or system is as robust as its exception handling. So when we test software or a product, be it unit integration, system acceptance, or stress testing, we test to find as many failure points as possible to ensure that they're all handled exceptionally well and that it's built into the system.
See, when we had this creativity class, a part of this creativity class was making cake. baking cake. So about 10 teams were there. They were supposed to bake cakes. A couple of them looked like cakes. Many of them did not look like cakes. So we went near them, they were feeling very sorry, right? But the way that we expressed it, they suddenly got rejoiced. What did we say? Wow, you've now made a nice pudding, right? It just reframed in their thought, and suddenly they found that they could make pudding out of the same kind of recipe, right? It's the way that one thinks, right? When when we were grading along with Professor Anant in one of the courses, so we were about 4 of us sitting and grading. At one point, Professor Anant asked this question, so how are you doing the grading? So I said, if this person answers this correct, I give some mark and then go on to that and then add the total marks, I'll get the total marks. He said, why can't you think it this way? Let's start with thinking that the student deserves 100% and perhaps think of how you can deduct from 100% to arrive at the same marks. For all you know, he may not arrive at the same mark as you have started, where you started with the 0 and then ended up with this value. So in a way, he was looking at it as everyone deserves 100%, right? And the feedback is in terms of reducing to a certain extent. It was a great learning lesson for me.